What is up, Mother Duckers? My name is Justine, your host for Mentally a Badass. Today, I have a fellow BPDer named Delaney. She is super excited to share her personal story living with BPD, and this is going to be her personal debut into the mental health community. In this episode, we will talk about her experience living with BPD as well as being an entrepreneur, and we are going to be discussing the difference between bipolar and BPD. So if you're interested in learning those main differences, then sorry, messed up. I'm going to cut that there. If you're interested in learning more of those key differences, then keep listening. But Delaney, welcome to Mentally a Badass.
Hello.
Awesome. So let's get into it. In every Mentally a Badass episode, the main thing is that we like to get deep into your past. And then we believe that your past has a lot to do with currently who you are. Doesn't of course define your future, but let's get into it. So you mentioned to me that you have BPD. You were 30 years old. When did you get diagnosed with BPD?
So I actually was about 22 when I was officially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Okay, so you were 22 years old. Is there a particular event that led to that?
Actually, a really big event. Um, Something wasn't quite right in my life when I was living in Manitoba, and I got the opportunity to move out to BC. It wasn't um, something that I thought about. It was something I just did.
Mhm.
And I wasn't well, but I knew I wasn't getting any better in Manitoba, so I took the chance.
Okay. So you said, just to kind of radiate. So you said that you were moving. I'm sorry. Do you mind repeating? I think I had a little bit. I'm gonna cut that part out. Do you mind repeating? I think I had a little hard time comprehending.
Sure. Um, so the thing that, sorry, do you want to ask the question again?
Yeah. So
Oh,
you mentioned that you were diagnosed with BPD when you were 22 years old. Is there a particular event that led to your diagnosis?
sure. So I had the opportunity to move out to BC when I was 21,
Mm-hmm.
and my mental health wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in Manitoba when I was living in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to take the opportunity to move. Um, that wasn't the best idea
Mm-hmm.
because I removed myself from all my friends and family. Not knowing at the time that I had BPD, I didn't know the outcome, what kind of outcome was gonna happen.
Okay, so let's dive into why you left your home area to move. So, is there any particular reason? Can you said that your mental health was not doing too well? Can we dive a little bit deeper into that?
Sure. I just don't think I had a lot of stability growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really happy. I wasn't really doing anything to make myself better or to pursue what I wanted to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of really stagnant, and there's a lot of history of mental health illness in my family,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of ignored that completely. Um, so it really it really came as a surprise to me when things got bad. Uh, but I kind of should have known.
Did you see any signs of it when you were growing up, like it manifesting into your adulthood?
Oh, for sure. So when I was about 14, my grandma had passed away. Um, it was hard, but it wasn't, I don't think it was really resonating with me what
Mm-hmm.
was going on. And actually, we were really close um, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
She was somebody that took care of me when I was in between my mom and my dad's houses
Mm-hmm.
because they were separated. Um, but I was really angry as a young adult and as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I was really passionate But if people didn't listen, I got upset.
Mhm.
Um, there was that. And after everything with my grandma happened, after a lot of the anger started coming out, I dropped out of high school. And things weren't great in school, but I don't know if they were any better out. Um, I ended up working in a job with a lot of people who are older than me. And then um, I kind of just didn't even think about pursuing school after that,
So based off what you're saying, it sounds like the main theme right here is about stability.
for sure.
So you mentioned that you go back and forth to your mom and your dad's house, and right there we know like that starts with instability because you have to kind of be in between and such. And it looks like your grandmother was kind of like the one, I want to say common denominator, but kind of was the one that really gave you the attention that you deserved, you know, as a child and as an adult. And when she passed away, that was kind of like your like that definitely would hurt a lot considering like she was like the person to give you what you needed, you know, as a child and as in high school. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. So from what it sounds like, and then when you dropped out and then you started working with other people, you never, I guess, really had the thought to, you know, go back to school. So did you ever go back to school or no?
I did. I was working full time
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit more. And I tried to go back to adult ed and get my GED. I actually, when I did work full time, I benefited from an apprenticeship program.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get a lot of my credits that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing. Super, super great program. Um, but adult ed was really hard. All I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do was learn, and everybody else just wanted to get it done, and just
Yeah.
they were showing up for attendance, and um, it was hard for me to not be distracted and really take in what I was supposed to be learning. So I didn't complete my GED then.
Okay, but you said you eventually did. Is that right or no?
Nope, not at
Oh,
all. Not
okay.
at all. Not at
But
all.
hey, you're still doing great in life, and we're definitely gonna get into that shortly. So I also think I wanted to bring up on what you mentioned. You said so your mental health was not good in a particular environment that you were in, and we know that environment has a lot to do with our mental health.
Mhm.
So when you know, it's definitely reasonable that you think, let me switch my environments, which I can completely relate to you on that. I switched states when I moved when I was 20, around the same age actually, 22. I moved from New Jersey to Florida. So I moved to the Sunshine State. And so for me personally, it did really well. But of course, you know, everyone has a different experience.
Yeah.
So you said that when you moved and you realized that you've missed your family and friends. Is that correct? Did you move by yourself?
I moved with someone I was close with, but the idea was kind of to end up on my own eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it wasn't thought out very much. But I didn't have anyone else out there. Um, and growing up, if I didn't have my family around, I had my friends. My
Yeah.
friends are my family,
Yeah.
and uh, making new friends out there really was a huge struggle. And I'd never really encountered that problem as like a young adolescent, young adult.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't really a problem for me. So when I got out there, it really made me struggle.
Yeah, that can definitely be a huge change, and especially when you're so used to something and then something completely different. Your brain's like, "What is going on?"
Yeah,
Yeah, that can definitely be challenging. So you ended up moving back. Is that correct?
I did. It
Mm-hmm.
actually took almost 3.5, 4 years
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of different circumstances, situations, help from my dad and my brother, and they actually they had to come and get me.
Mhm.
But it was um, it was a learning experience, and I don't think I would change it. But that is when I got diagnosed with my BPD.
Yeah, so I liked your, your mindset and your outlook that even though something super, challenging has happened to you, you would never regret it. And if you think about it, like if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't have known that you have BPD. And it's great to know that you do, have that diagnosis and have BPD, and knowing that, you do have this diagnosis. So now once you have this diagnosis, you know how to develop coping mechanisms, or seek therapy, or if you do meds, whatever, everyone has different treatment plans, of course. So let's transition a little bit into when we were talking on Instagram. You meant you wanted to talk about, the key differences of bipolar and BPD. I do have a
Mhm.
question. When you were in the process of getting diagnosed, were you at all diagnosed with bipolar?
Actually, no, that wasn't something that came up. Um, I did know about bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
and it never really resonated with me
Mm-hmm.
as something that I thought fit. But I also had no idea what BPD was. I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, has never really heard of it. Are you familiar with CPTSD?
Um, yes, sorry, I had to spell it out in my head.
No, you're good. It's definitely a conversation that has been spoken about lately on social media, like trending wise.
Yeah.
And I've seen the name and everything, but I never really actually learned about it until I spoke with my therapist when I was like pretty much telling her everything and such. And she kind of came to saying, "Have you heard of CPTSD?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I, didn't think much of it. I just like saw the word, of course, on social media."
Mhm.
But it's kind of crazy. Apparently, there's a lot of conversation that now CPTSD is getting mixed up with not bipolar, borderline personality disorder, because they also, so it's pretty much bipolar is getting mixed with BPD, and now BPD is getting mixed with CPTSD.
Yeah.
Isn't mental health just so great? It's so complex. But people who have CPTSD are basically is you're going through chronic trauma. So,
Mhm.
PTSD, we all know, is like if you get into a car accident or someone gets raped, or, things like that. Like that's PTSD for a particular event, while CPTSD is like just like majority of your life you're just going through trauma, like different things like every year. So like I
Mhm.
went through that, and I did not realize that all of this can manifest into symptoms that by both bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So it's not in the DSM right now, but I think they're trying to get it in there.
Mhm.
But it's super interesting about that. But let me back up, because I know the main topic we're going to be talking about is bipolar and borderline. Did you have like any friends that went through a situation like that? I know some people who have, and then they were
Mhm.
diagnosed with borderline.
Actually, I didn't really have many friends with the vulnerability to talk about mental health at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Um, there was um, someone at the school that I went to when I went to school, and she was a fantastic therapist. Um, but she was for everybody. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it, sorry, I kind of got off topic there.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
sorry, can you ask the question?
Yeah, so my question was, do you have anyone in particular in mind that went through a challenge where they were like misdiagnosed as bipolar, but they really had BPD?
Right. So yeah, like I was saying, I didn't really have many friends, or even family that talked about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We all, especially my family, we all knew about the serious mental health issues that some of us were dealing with, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something we discussed.
Okay.
And then friends with BPD, especially, I didn't meet till I was diagnosed.
Okay. These friends that you have, you say you didn't meet until you were diagnosed. Are these like internet friends or like in person?
So, super big blessing. My business, when I moved back to Winnipeg, really opened me up
Mm-hmm.
to talking about my mental health with people who were wanting to open up, or people who had questions if I was posting something about jewelry or mental health or random things. And sometimes we would get into discussions, and it would just kind of let me open up to other people, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it let people open up to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's all about a vibe as well. And but back in the day, like I mean, you said you're 30, so you're like 2 years older than me. So we're in the same generation pretty much, like if we're like high school and such. And back then, like no one like spoke about it. And if you were to speak about mental health, they would just like look down at you and kind of be like a hush hush kind of challenge. But luckily now people are starting to talk more about it, and there's a lot more resources and content out there and social media, and every people are once one person talks about it and then they create a platform, and then more people get, feeling okay about it. But of course, we do have some people who are still ignorant towards it, unfortunately. So we're
Hmm.
not fully there yet. But the more people talk and the more that it just becomes just like a regular conversation,
Yeah,
like that's like the main goal really of this podcast, is just having conversations about mental health and just making it casual. Like I feel
making
like
it easy
yeah.
almost.
Easy, exactly. Not like if you're going to be talking about, anxiety and just feeling like, oh, like anxious, just talking like you're anxious talking about anxiety. Like before we got on this recording, I was even saying to you, like I kept saying sorry to you a million times, and I was saying I'm sorry, I'm a people pleaser. Like so I feel comfortable saying that, and I think, well, one, we're about to get on a conversation about mental health. So so I felt comfortable with that, but also since I have this platform, I'm just myself am getting it's getting easier to talk about. And then you were saying like in person with the jewelry and stuff, and people are feeling, I feel like you are easy to talk to. I feel like if I didn't know you, I'll be like, you seem like such a sweet person. Sorry, there was like a bug like there. So yeah, just if you're wondering why I was doing that, there was just like a random bug. Yeah, so yeah, you are a very sweet person, and people can also just like know that, just like the way you, I don't know, like your energy and such. And this fly just wants to get into our conversation. Clearly, you want to talk mental health, fly? Come
Yeah,
in.
no,
Yeah, let's just join the circle here.
yeah.
No discrimination. You can be,
Everybody's welcome,
everybody's welcome. This is so random and off topic, but like, does a fly have mental health?
right? I think about that all the time. I think about like when I vent to my cat, I'm like, what am I doing to him?
Oh, they 100% do. So they
Hmm.
say, I don't know if it's cats too, but for dogs, like if you're anxious and have a dog, your dog's going to be anxious.
Yeah. Oh, for
It's
sure.
so
Like
insane. Yeah, so dogs 100% have mental health. I feel
cats,
like they're very similar to us in ways.
they are. They are with their emotions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's transition and talk about your jewelry business. So, you mentioned to me that the reason you started because you love putting things back together, which I found very interesting because that can also have a lot to do with like helping others and mental health and kind of putting the pieces back together when something is broken. So, let's just talk a little bit more. If you want to just talk about your jewelry business, like when did it start?
It actually started when I moved to BC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I love being outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where I lived in Manitoba didn't really give me the most access to the forests or hiking trails. I had to go pretty far to go for a good bike trail. So when I got to BC, I got to hike every day, and it made me so happy. But it also brought me to lots of rivers, which are plentiful of agates, which are a stone commonly used in jewelry making. And they were just there for me to use.
Mm-hmm.
And I started wire wrapping and making things. And Um, it just it was for my mental health, you know. It
Mhm.
was being able to make something beautiful out of a rock, and that was awesome for me.
Yeah, that's the creative part, and people who do have BPD are also known to be like super creative. So that was pretty much your outlet, is what you would say, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Um, it brought me so much joy. It
Mhm.
brought me some peace and something to focus on that wasn't a negative thing.
Yeah, that is so amazing that you're able to make your passion into something that supports, your life and pay the bills and such. And you mentioned you also work at a vintage retail store and you sell your jewelry. So how's that experience there?
It's amazing.
Mhm.
I I was lucky enough to get the opportunity a few years ago, and I was so scared, but I was so excited. I couldn't say no. Um,
Mhm.
it was the first opportunity like that I was given,
Mhm.
and it was the best thing for my business, for myself. And now I get the opportunity to not only work with amazing people and amazing, uh, really like a really amazing atmosphere,
Mhm.
and I get to talk to people about what I like to do, and I get to see how they get excited about what I've made.
Yeah. Do you have any challenges for the entrepreneur side with having BPD?
Oh, focus, being
Oh
able
yeah.
to stick to one idea or to
Uh-huh.
get a list of things you need to get done instead of making something new or um, you know emotions come into play a lot with business and your day to day. And so I did and do struggle with um, how my BPD affects my day to day business. But I like to think that it's not a detriment. I
Mhm.
like to think of it as um, it's given me more patience. It's
Mhm.
given me um, kind of the want and will to be a bit more brave.
So one thing I want to jump on, you mentioned that you have troubles with attention and then starting a lot of projects but not finishing it, or it sounds a lot also because ADHD calls me part of like an like underneath as well,
Hmm.
but also like bipolar as well with like being like mania and such or like
Hmm.
hypomanias where you're like confident in starting all these projects and you like never finish it, like you're
Hmm.
overly confident. So that's where it's like with let's talk about some BPD symptoms and some bipolar systems. So what I want you to do, I want you to just throw out like 5 symptoms right now, and then I'll throw out
Hmm.
some bipolar, and let's kind of like talk about it from there.
So for me, loneliness for BPD,
Okay, let me write this
that
down. Okay, loneliness,
insecurities,
so like self-image, yeah.
yeah, um, motivation,
Mm-hmm. Motivation.
um, um, the the determination to complete something,
Okay, like
determination,
drive,
yes,
increase drive.
yes,
Okay, one more. You got this.
um, for me, instability,
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. We should have. Cause that was like the whole thing we were talking about too in the beginning as well. So when you say instability, more like emotional regulation.
yeah,
Ah, gotcha. All right. So bipolar. Obviously we have like the highs and the lows. So like I would say like deep depression
hmm
is one of them. Like lack of energy. So deep depression. Um, unusual amounts of energy randomly. Okay. Um, this is one of the darkest ones, suicide ideation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, focus is definitely a big one too. I'm throwing that in there.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Let's see, because I'm trying to think of, because there's, for me, I have bipolar too. So I get hypomanic and depression, but mostly depression,
Mm-hmm.
which I kind of like low key wish it was the other way around so I could be more productive. But you know how bad that sounds, if you know what I mean.
Sometimes, sometimes it is what it is, and you do
Yeah.
pick and choose. You're like, well, if I was like this though, I would be like this.
Yeah.
There's always a give and take.
Right. So, oh yeah, irritability is a big one for bipolar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here how they coexist together. You said loneliness. Oh my gosh, words again. Loneliness, which can definitely have a lot to do with depression. So those two can connect. When
Mm-hmm.
you're lonely, you can also feel depressed. Self-image. I had those challenges too, but I also was diagnosed with BPD as well. So that could be stemming from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the self-image part, I feel like that can come a lot from like self-esteem, like growing up. So if you were like bullied,
Yeah.
one thing I learned from one of my guests is about creating core beliefs when you're young, and how when you
Mm,
create these core beliefs when you're a child, it manifests as for pretty much the rest of your life until you like really heal those wounds.
yeah.
And they will always some way be there, but not as intense.
And they get easier to deal with when you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, and your triggers
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. Okay. Motivation, I would say, can honestly go back to depression as well.
Yeah.
That falls back into depression. Increased drive, that can go for unusual amounts of energy.
Yeah.
So your increased drive, is that do you have a particular trigger that gets it going to increase like your passion? Like once you're
Um.
it's kind of like being, I guess, hyper fixated on something.
Mhm. Yeah. Um. Sometimes it's just like if I don't finish this, I'll never know what it looks like.
Uh
If I don't
huh.
finish this, what have I spent my time doing? Um. It's almost like I'm forcing myself
Hmm.
to do it because if I don't, then what have I done?
Yeah, and then you kind of have like that a feeling of like guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super big guilt.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. It's like when you the definitely the drive. I've always had such a big, increased drive. But I thought that was just me just being a go-getter. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it could stem from, it could be a little bit of both. That's where it's a little bit challenging. It's like we don't know if it's just kind of like, then again, if it goes back to our personality,
I always joke around that maybe she's born with it or maybe it's just BPD.
it's so
I
challenging.
I
Yeah.
never really know. Um, but I try to not differentiate between me and my BPD anymore.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
what makes me who I am,
Mhm.
but it's shaped me into who I'm going to become.
Exactly. No, I totally agree with you on that. Especially since you're open, because you know how many people are probably like undiagnosed
For
with
sure.
it and it just kind of rolling with the punches and just yeah.
And not understanding what it is and
Mhm.
not knowing how to fix it or not even fix it, but how to deal with it.
Yeah, and I'm reading this book. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like The Body Keeps Count. No,
Okay.
Body Keeps Score. Sorry, I always keep forgetting. It was The Body Keeps Count. The Body Keeps Score. Um, yeah, I keep saying it wrong, but pretty much it was saying that like if we can focus on mental health as like the main thing from like just start from the beginning, like once a baby was born, because a lot of people don't understand is that babies have mental health,
Yeah.
and they're the most fragile brains. So when if you don't focus on your offspring's mental health and you're kind of just like, oh, they're just a baby. You think that because they can't communicate to you properly. All they do is they cry, 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 but they can't properly communicate what they need. So since people are not really understanding of that, it creates, things like low self esteem or attachment or just a lot of things where then this parent thinks, oh, they're just like the bad kid or whatever. And also, if you keep calling your kid, oh, they're bad or this and that, it's like, okay, then they're going to be bad when they get older, you
Yeah,
know?
like
So I can't stand that. I can go on about that. And I'm
oh,
thinking, yeah,
I can't agree more with you. I think that everything starts young and we're formed into what we're surrounded by. Um,
exactly.
and if we're surrounded by, all of these negative things and nothing positive or no support,
Mm-hmm.
um, it it's not impossible, but it's really hard for somebody to grow into an emotionally stable, positive human being.
Yeah, the emotional stability part, especially, and just like being a functioning person of society. And it's really challenging when, some people, if they have a challenge with emotional stability in this world that we live in, especially. Like, this world that we live in is so hard. Like, especially since 2020 is getting like even more challenging. And so it's just like dealing with like your inner demons and have to deal with the outside demons.
Hmm.
It's just, and then when everybody's not understanding how important mental health is, then everyone's just hurting everybody. When they say hurt people hurts people, that's
Hmm.
just going to be a domino effect if we don't like take action now.
Yeah.
And having all of this generational trauma just stop. I do like to talk out a lot about that. I just sometimes I kind of feel like it's not my place because I'm not a mother, but also like I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think we were brought up by our mothers, and
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that we aren't ourselves, we can have an opinion on something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but not only have an opinion, but have a positive and like hopeful outlook for these kids. Because they don't deserve negativity and
Mm-hmm.
um, not being able to be open about how they're feeling. Uh,
Yeah.
it starts so young, and I think for me, it started just that way.
Yeah. They don't know how to express their emotions.
Hmm.
And if you really think about it, like even in just like school system, I don't know, I don't know if it's just the US or everywhere around the world, but they focus more on sports versus like art and like creativity. And
100%.
sports is great too. You can just get out all the anger or whatever, but like people need like healthy ways of expressing their emotion. And
And
do you yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Think about it like this. I feel like a lot of people who have a lot of aggression and anger, and of course, I'm not trying to stereotype or anything like that. So, just kind of like, I guess, my personal experience. But do you feel like people who are, I guess, more in sports could probably have more likely of expressing their emotions through aggression versus ways of like just creating and putting their emotions in art? It's kind of like how they learn, I guess, how to express their emotions, which is not really the proper way because then you're going to hurt more people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like sometimes, getting something out in a physical way, and I'm not saying like a violent way, but in a
Mm-hmm.
physical way, like working out or
Oh, yeah, that's
walking,
good.
those are great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think that people sometimes fall back onto that aggression,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're taught that that's an okay thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do think that people, schools, even here in Canada, are super geared towards um, that kind of the sporty as opposed to the creative. Um,
Mm.
and I not only experienced that, but I used to, when I was young, be creative. I didn't have a good outlet for it,
Mhm.
and it wasn't really supported. So I actually took to working out to get out my feelings.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love working out. Like it's one of my favorite things. I can't do it right now at the moment because I'm currently getting adjusted with a chiropractor. So like my upper body is very fragile right now because I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to fix my neck.
Oh,
Yeah, if you see my X-rays, they're bad.
oh,
Like they're
I'm
so I
so
did
sorry.
not. I've had like neck pain for 10 years because I had a little bit of an injury
Mm,
and I did physical therapy, but it didn't really work. But yeah, this whole 10 years, I was just kind of dealing with the pain.
right.
And now I'm like, okay, it's getting way worse. Let me go to a chiropractor. And they took my x rays, and with their findings, they're like, you lost 74% of your natural curve.
Oh my.
So yeah, it's interesting. So like your neck is supposed to like, be curvy, right?
Mm,
Mine's like this.
can they undo
Oh yeah, I have a treatment
that?
going on. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
thank
We have a
goodness.
3 month treatment going on. A little pricey, but it's an investment in my health. So I'm like, when they of course pitching like like giving me the treatment, how much it is, it's like, oh, that's a lot of money. But I'm like, you know what? This is what a rainy day savings is for this
Yeah.
because if I let it go and not do this treatment, it can get way. I'm only 28 years old. Like I have like the kind of alignment that I'm having. It's like if I was like 60 or 70.
Well, it's not going to just get better by itself,
Oh, it
especially if
won't.
it's gotten to this point already.
Oh my god, I kind of like got
Um,
a little bit mad at myself. I was like, why did I like it got I didn't realize how bad it was. But
that's
yeah.
so. It's so funny that you say that because like that's how I felt about me dealing with my mental health. It was like, if it's this bad already,
Imagine.
how is this going to get better if I don't do something?
Right. And it gets harder and harder to get better when you wait. Like my grandmother, she has like the mental health challenges, like depression and such. I really think she had bipolar, but was never, during her time, forget it. Mental health was very hush hush.
Mm-hmm.
They would just smoke every day and like my mom would tell me like her childhood, like my grandmother would be throwing knives at people, like shit like that. Like it'd be crazy. Like thankfully my mom never threw knives at me. I mean, she was a little hard to live with too, but I wasn't getting knives thrown at me. But and usually people who have untreated bipolar disorder and doesn't know how to regulate their emotions could lead to things like that.
Yeah,
Like so dangerous.
yeah, and
And
it's scary for the person involved that is
mhm.
having to. But like, I can't imagine having that kind of thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just it has to get really really bad for it
Yeah,
to actually get. It's just because
yeah,
people with bipolar have a lot of powerful negative energy inside of
hmm,
them, and a lot of times when they're younger, they'll take it out with self-harming
hmm,
to relieve that negative energy, or instead of doing that, they'll like for me, like I did self-harm in high school, but now when it comes to like negative energy, I kind of like I had like this big teddy bear and I would like punch the shit out of it. I would do that, and then I would just have like my own little episodes in my room by myself. And
hmm,
then I had a lot of it about last month because I was dealing with a lot of stress. And
hmm.
then my boyfriend he got out like these boxing gloves, and he gave me boxing gloves. And he was like, I was like literally like not punching it, but he knows how to do this stuff. So I was kind of like doing like a boxing thing with him. It helped a lot. Well, first it helped that I was like laughing so hard
Yeah,
because I was like, I'm like, I love that you just didn't tell me just to like calm down. You just like gave me like
the
a you
support.
you you gave yeah exactly like, which was really nice. Like that actually like made me super happy because
Yeah,
there's some times where he doesn't know what to say, you know, but this time he like did really
but the
well.
boxing gloves.
Yeah, no, he did really well this time. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Like you really handled this really well when it came to support. But
Yeah,
yeah, so that's just,
and
it's
practical.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then me and my therapist are trying to work with ways where I'm not like punching stuff all the time, but kind of get it out in different ways. But
Mhm.
I don't know if you've been noticing on the Instagram every not Sunday, every Saturday. I've been like leaking my I don't want to call it leaking because it's me doing it, but I've been like exposing my journal entries before I was diagnosed with bipolar. And you can, like, it's honestly, I have way darker ones. I just don't know if I'm really confident yet of releasing those just yet. I'm kind of like just putting some out, but some are like really intense,
Yeah.
which is like really dark and like with anger too. And I was like, sorry, just heard like, do you hear that? Oh,
No.
I did it. Wait, it sounds like a clicking. What the?
Oh, I hear like a, yeah, kind of.
Why is there clicking? Okay, it's gone. That was
Okay.
weird. That was super weird. Okay, anyway, I'll cut that part out, obviously. So yeah, so I was just had like so much, I was like a raging teenager. But that's what happens when it's like I was a sad child becoming a raging teenager.
You're not emotionally equipped to deal with these things at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but first of all, thank you for doing that because people don't have to feel alone when they see stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess part of me was like, I don't want to feel like judged, but also I put it on MAB, not my personal Instagram.
Hmm.
Which I'm sure most people wouldn't judge me on my personal Instagram, but also I kind of have like 2 clients that like follow me on there too. So they don't need to know all that.
Every once in a while, I'll throw something on the Daisy Wild Vintage page, and I'm like, oh, delete, delete, delete.
Yeah. But it's kind of also crazy because I put all those entries in like a private Tumblr journal, private Tumblr blog. Do you know what Tumblr is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so back when Tumblr was cool, I had like a private blog and I was able to like access it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, at least all my trauma is going to turn into something good like 10 years later. Literally, like 10 years later. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's pretty wild how we can look back and see what we used to be and see how we've progressed through that kind of stuff. But
I
the
know.
internet's wild. It keeps all of our secrets.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting towards 45 minutes. So, what is that noise? That is so weird. Do you hear it again?
It's like a very faint bloop, bloop, bloop.
Okay, let's see if we can try to get through this before it does it again.
Yeah,
It's
let's.
so weird. Okay, cool. So, I think summary wise, we can kind of see how like bipolar and BPD can be similar, but like for example, you feel loneliness, but that also can be part of like depression, and
Mhm.
then like self image can also be connected to self esteem. So it's kind of like they're very similar, but not at the same time in a way. It's like there's a symptom, and then there's it's like it's kind of like you and I are saying two different symptoms, but they kind of correlate.
They coincide for
They co
sure.
Yes, exactly. So I think we can say that's why it's super challenging, but it's also like I understand some people kind of get bipolar and BPD. So it's really like your
Hmm.
therapist or psychiatrist really has to really get to know you.
For
Like
sure.
get to know your history and just everything. So yeah, I think we kind of have a little bit more of an understanding, but yeah, no, it's a lifelong kind of journey there. But is there before we end this,
Hmm.
I always like to ask my guests if there's like a last piece of advice. So let's say someone who's listening right now has BPD or may think they have, bipolar or they're recently diagnosed with BPD. I guess
Hmm.
when it comes to coping and such, like what's a piece of advice you would like to give to my audience?
Um, if you think that something's wrong, definitely, definitely go and see who you think you need to see to get better.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's not it's not the end all to getting
Hmm.
diagnosed with BPD or bipolar.
Yeah.
It it is a journey, but it it's only going to make you better.
Yeah, I would say taking the biggest takeaway is don't wait until like there's no reason to wait till it's too late.
No,
Yeah,
you don't
because
you don't need to wait until it's really bad.
yeah.
You don't need to wait till somebody says something. You know, if you if you feel like you need to improve or you feel like there's something amiss, then
Mhm.
then talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with this day and age, like people are being more open about it.
Yeah.
And like even like to I always like to invite like if people ever feel like they're alone or, need to talk to somebody who would understand and not be judgmental, I always say they can, reach out to us via DM. And of course, if you
Hmm.
want to open to that, and I've had people do that. And yeah,
It's
always welcome.
yeah, it's pretty amazing the kind of connections you can make just by being open and being a
Hmm.
little vulnerable and a little bit brave,
Absolutely. It can save a life.
for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Delaney, for taking your time to be on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, and it was nice to finally get to meet you. I wish I could
Yeah.
shake your hand.
Uh, maybe one day. You never know.
You never know.
Yeah, I would love to come to Canada sometime. I'm getting a lot of people that I'm making friends with over there. I already have like multiple people. I'm like, I need to take a trip there.
Actually, I'm surprised you're not Canadian because of how much you say sorry.
Really?
It's a thing. It's a thing here. Yeah. So you'd fit right in.
Oh, well, I definitely need to make my way there when I can. Who knows? Maybe it'll
Oh,
be on maybe next year or something. Right, this year I have a lot going on, but maybe next year.
I'm sure you know it, but don't come in the winter.
Oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Hope you guys have a good day, night, morning, wherever it is, and stay tuned for next episode.